brand new episode of Black Tech Unplugged. Today, I'm joined by Shayna Atkins. She is the founder of Atkco Inc. So, Shayna, so happy to have you on the podcast.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, and I'm so excited to have you talk about your business. We're going to talk about agile, process improvement, all of the good stuff. So, let's hop right on in. And as I mentioned, you are an entrepreneur and you even identify as a product development expert. So I want to start with, what does that really mean? What does that truly mean?
Yes. So, in terms of being a product development expert, I've been kind of in the world of tech for the last 13 years, and I've spent a good part of that time, like the full 10,000 hours, right? Studying the how behind how products are built, how successful products are launched, and what are the steps to building high performing teams that build great products, as well as kind of maintaining a technology ecosystem that stores and maintains and launches products out to customers every day.
So basically, you've been studying everything about agile, is what I'm hearing.
Yes, and when I say agile, I know like today agile is a pretty main language, but when I talk about agile, I really mean like ways of working when it comes to like incremental ways of working in terms of the process that it takes to build a product.
Yes, and actually, I was going to ask you about that because, as we know, people use agile and scrum kind of interchangeably. And
Absolutely.
And your company, however, uses like all of the agile concepts. You use lean, you're using Kanban, the scale agile framework, you're using everything, which is a
Yes.
little bit unheard of. So I want to ask, why do you use like the multi-agile approach as opposed to one framework?
Yes, I decided a long time ago that I didn't want to have that Atkco as a company would not have bias towards a specific framework in terms of delivering a solution. And the reason why is because when we work with customers, we're really there to take them from problem solving to acceleration. A lot of times there's a very specific problem that a client is trying to solve. Sometimes it's that they have a launch coming up soon. They are spinning on it. They're trying to figure out how can they get to the finish line, right? And in
Mhm.
those scenarios, you have to apply what's best for the problem statement. And there is so many frameworks and so many tools that I think what makes Atkco different is that we customize the solution that's the best fit for the problem statement, for the company, and for the culture that we're dealing with.
Yes, and we keep bringing up Atco, but we haven't explained what you all do exactly. So why don't you tell my audience, what does Atco Inc. have to offer? What are your services?
So Atkco is a consulting and training firm, and what we focus on is process improvement solutions. We say that we take customers from problem solving to acceleration, and what we do is we use ways of working frameworks, whether that's a lot of times that's agile methodologies to help clients solve for a particular problem statement that they have in the IT space. That shows up in a lot of ways, right? So sometimes we're helping a team of help desk associates, get respond to service requests faster, and we might be helping them improve their Kanban process, for example. Other
Mhm.
times, we might be helping a group of project managers become product managers, and we might be implementing a product management or ownership training. So it just really depends on the scenario, but we're really here to create improvement in technology processes.
Okay. And someone listening might think, okay, you probably could do that from an individual contributor level in some kind of that sense, right? Like if you're starting up the first agile team within your department, you're doing a little bit of that work. So what makes your company different than say the individual contributor?
Absolutely. So I would say that a lot of times when we come in, a lot of amazing individual contributors have done the work that you're talking about, right? They've started an agile team within a particular department, or they've had some really cool successes. And it's almost like this experiment of this team in the corner that's just doing amazing things. A lot of times when we come in, it's to help scale that across a department, across an entire company, and really help an organization kind of achieve that, the beauty, that you've been on like an amazing team before, right? When it just seems to be all the right players, y'all are working together
Yes.
really cool. It's like you still, you still invite them to the barbecue. Maybe not everybody from your last company, but you still invite some folks from that amazing team to the
Yeah.
barbecue. And what we're trying to do, what we really do is we take those moments and we try to create that at scale for organizations, and really create a team of teams that brings out the best of the magic of what that individual contributor may have created, but also bringing the science and the process into it so that it's something that's sustainable for the company to have long term.
Excellent. And we got to get down to the real talk. So, going into these organizations and trying to help them improve is not easy.
Oh,
And
it's not.
so, I want you to talk about what it's like to actually go through that coaching aspect of trying to get an organization to change their agile processes.
Yeah, so I think I always have these like really funny stories. I think first things first is that Atkco looks like the world that we live in, right? And some of the organizations that we go into don't always. And so sometimes there's just a gap in like, who, you know, who's all in the room? What's going on? But I
Mhm.
actually think that that's one of our super strengths. Also, it's, I think one of the things that we do, like we have a really crisp operating model, like a delivery model at Atkco. Like basically from the time we decide, like we go into an organization all the way to what we call project wrap up, or, if we decide if there's a continuation of services, there's a very defined roadmap. And kind of at the beginning of that roadmap, it looks something like observe, collect, feedback, understand, and in the terms of our community, you're supposed to read the room. And I think that that's critical because everybody has the best intent, right? Any company is doing their best and is probably thinking like, we have implemented all the improvements we can implement, and they may not be always so open to an outside perspective. And just we come in with that thought process, like, one, let's read the room, and two, what is that 1% that we can do to shift forward or to make a difference? Because that 1% mindset can unlock a lot of value.
Yes.
1% of some of the sizes of the companies that we work with is a significant amount of value.
Right. And also sometimes tiny but mighty, right? It can be the
Exactly.
tiniest thing, but have the mightiest impact.
Exactly.
And you were talking about your team, and it sounds like they're diverse. So, you want to see, like, we're listening to this podcast, we are two Black women. You want to see
Yes.
some people that look like you when you get into the room, but it's not always the case. But I digress because I want to talk
Mhm.
about your team, because Inc. just named you the fastest growing private company in America. You're on that list.
Oh,
So,
thank
first off,
you.
congratulations on that. That's
Thank you
amazing.
so much. It's wild. Yeah,
Well,
it's really cool.
and we also need to know, how did you do it, because a lot of companies are not growing
Mm.
like that, and a lot of companies don't even make it out the first year when it's an entrepreneurial suit. So how are you growing and doing these amazing things?
I think it's a combination. So one, I just really have to give glory to God, like first and foremost. And I hate to, go there with it, but there's some of this that's a little bit of like luck meets opportunity, right?
Yes.
And timing. So I will say that I started Atkco as a side hustler galore, right? I was working at a large consulting firm. I had an idea. I wanted to do some things differently. And I started out in a very grassroots way. I was mostly working with like community organizations, Black women in tech, Black people in tech, et cetera. And I was just applying the same concepts that I do for my clients today. And it just so happened that the stars aligned. And when Atkco was born, there was a time where it started to be very obvious that there was no longer a choice in having incremental ways of working or agile processes in the way that you build IT. It was just like every organization was kind of coming into the realization like, oh, we can't be set up like this anymore.
Right.
So there was an industry change that happened. I think the other thing is that I am a lifelong learner and agilist to the core, like to the point where, you know, I got Kanban boards set up for the personal life. You know what I'm saying? I do lean economic prioritization for me and my husband's, like, you know what I'm saying, personal goals. I'm in it, you know, I'm
Right.
gonna read the book. Okay. I'm going to shift with the times. So I think part of that is like when it was time to turn the ship, you know, I take the realm and we turn the ship. I think the third thing is just amazing team. I was that student in college who just did not know what an internship was. I'm kind of in that first generation category on my mother's side of the family. So I was just like so happy to have made it to college like that. It kind of like the what happens afterwards part just did not dawn on me.
Right.
And I did not ever get an internship. I did cool things during the summer, but I was not like ready to enter the workforce. And so as a result of that, I run an intern program like it's nobody's business. And that was like the first of an Atkco team, right? And so like today that intern program fuels like a lot of the entry level team members that we have, and it really helped to differentiate us because we actually, like most consulting firms don't have like a customer service department, and we do. Like it's like, no, the customer experience is as important as the delivery of the services that we offer.
Right. And so many companies forget about customer service.
I'm telling you, especially when you're
So many.
B2B,
Right.
B2B, like consulting type companies, they come in with those experts who know everything. And I'm telling you, they don't give no updates. They don't think of how you doing, how is everything. And we, like a core part of why I believe we do well is we have a customer success department. And like that's like it's a function within the company. And from the time that you come in to the time that you leave, there is a touch, you know. And I think that
Right.
that white glove approach makes a difference because I mean, I think unlike a lot of other founders, I'm settled in that I'm a small business owner, right? I have a linear growth professional services business. I'm a boutique firm,
Right.
whereas like an exponential like tech company, they can set it themselves up a little bit differently, right? They have users, they have a platform, etc. So I very much treat my company as a boutique consulting firm, high touch, white glove services. So and I think just being authentic to that with a startup mindset has really fueled the growth.
And you mentioned the customer success. You have that department within your organization. Just want to break down for people who do not know what that means, what that is exactly, and how yours functions.
Yeah, so customer success is essentially the client's best friend or customer service partner during the time of a contract or the time of when we're engaged with a client or a customer. They're usually that person that kind of checks in and makes sure that everything is okay. They're that person you connect with if things are not okay to fix them. I'm not sure if, you know, for those who are kind of listening, if you have like a airline membership or a hotel membership or any kind of, like, even a gym membership, and you have an issue and you know you've been billed twice by mistake, or you know what I'm saying, a flight got canceled, right? That's that 1-800 line where you have like that direct connect. And as you become, there's usually tiers, right? Like if you're a really good customer, you usually have like a specific person for you kind of thing. So we have a function like that where it's almost like a hospitality type of customer service dedicated representative that gets paired with each of our clients in addition to their the services and solutions that they receive.
That's amazing. I wish more companies had that.
Look, right after this podcast, Dina, they will. No.
So we're talking about your company, but you know what? I failed to ask you. So you mentioned you had an idea, you were working corporate, you had this idea for Atco. Well, how did you go from your idea stage to actually launching and like putting your full dedication into Atco?
Yeah, so it was kind of a beautiful culmination of events because what I originally wanted to do with Atkco, and I'm what one calls like an agile coach or digital transformation coach by trade. And I just felt like, hey, I'm one in the experience that I had before, a lot of the trainings and the coaching that we did was not, it didn't have any sauce. So I was like, I just want to make this more interesting and more engaging. So that was like the starting point. And then I was like, oh, I want to do this in the community. Like, there was at that time, an organization called Blue 1647. They had an incubator. I wanted to like do, work with startups in our community and kind of apply these concepts because I knew the impact, like that is undeniable. And so then by chance I started this women's community. And when I started that women's community, I used to host these brunches where women who own businesses would kind of come and give advice. And I literally just had the pleasure of being the listener because I started the community. I was at every event, right? Mm-hmm. And I did that for almost 2 or 3 years. And I don't know, just by chance of being around all those amazing women in the community, I just started getting corporate clients and I knew what to do because I had listened to people's advice for such a long time. And I'm an, avid listener of podcasts at that time. So I was absorbing all this information. I had this idea. I knew I wanted to solve a problem. So I just started out as an independent contractor and, things kind of added up where it just did not make sense for me to continue to be a side hustler. So I took a leap of faith. And then as my company grew, I was like, oh, okay, it's time to hire employees. And I want to do that in the right way.
And what was that experience like hiring your first employee?
So I will tell you, I read this book and oh my gosh, it escapes me. It's about like Google's hiring culture and the name will come to me later. But during that time, I think I was interviewing for a job and I was actually interviewing for Google. I think that's what it was. And they were talking about culture. So I like wrote this at this time, Atkco's like, it exists and I'm a side, like it's not a bunch going on, it's enough, but like I'm still out here full time looking at life, right? So I wrote myself this letter on an airplane, like back from the job, right?
Okay.
And I wrote this letter and I was like, oh, this is what okay, listen, Atkco's culture will be X. I want to make sure that we deliver value. I want it to be human centered. I want it to I want people to feel like they're authentic, they can be their authentic selves here. So I had wrote this letter, I'm telling you, Dina, in like 2015. It was just me. We hired our first employee in 2018. But that letter, I revisited that letter and rewrote that letter many times over. And I'm not going to tell you we got it right in 2018, but I believe in, hire slow. You have to hire slow and make sure you self-correct quickly. So yes. I definitely did that, but I also kept the core, like, okay, what are our values? What's our vision? What's our mission? What's our hiring process? Like I think that Atkco's like hiring process was established way before we had systems in other areas. And I think that allowed for those people to come in and create the systems in the other areas that fueled our growth.
Okay. And that's almost like putting the agile methodology also into your hiring process? Because you're
Oh
like, you
no,
got to
we're
fail fast.
agile. We're agile in everything. Yeah, we do. We eat our own dog food for sure.
I
Like
love that.
we retro, we sprint, we doing
Okay.
backlog refinement.
Right.
We got Atlassian going. We Jira users. Before that, we were on Trello. Like we have, yes, we have frameworks and method. We do it like for real and
Right.
improve it.
Right. And I love that because a lot of people, some people talk the talk, but then they don't walk the walk.
Oh, it's painful,
So
Dina. Sometimes sometimes I gotta I can't even look at the retro feedback. Sometimes I can't even, I'm like, listen, y'all, what? We want to do what?
but hey, at least I like it because and then you have that transparency where
The
they feel
transparency of it.
comfortable enough
And
to
they say
actually
what they
say,
mean. That I
right,
appreciate. But it's
right.
hard. I'm like, wait, what? We need this. Yeah.
And Shayna, you mentioned like you are a digital transformation, like you were a consultant, you did agile coaching. And let's be real, when we were growing up, we didn't know these were career options. Like this
Oh
is something that you
no.
like fall into. So I want to talk a little bit about how did you even learn about like the innovation, agile side, and then what made you want to stick with that? Because obviously in life we pivot all the time. So you could have went and did like something completely different, like just regular business stuff. What
When
makes
I
you stay?
Yeah, so Dina, when I tell you that I'm from the west side of Chicago. Okay. So like at 9 years old, you could have bought $1.25 combo from me. It was an Italian ice and a bag of penny candy. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So like, no, agile and digital transformation was not on the map. My mom did own a beeper store to take it back, right? So I did code and program pagers on DOS, like as younger than usual. So I was never afraid of technology, if that makes any sense, because I did grow up with breadboards and coding on DOS and things like that. And those I think are really kind of outlier experiences that's why I say, God is in the mix, right? Like some things it's just that wasn't me. But I also am a product of entrepreneurs who got digitally disrupted, right? Like pagers went out, cell phones came in. We did cell phones for a while, but then big companies did no longer lent their licensing out to individual retailers. They would just put up a T-Mobile store. Before T-Mobile put up retail stores, there were individuals who licensed from those companies and resold like as resellers. So I say that all to say that I actually started my career in communications and high tech. So working with like cable, cell phone, like all that kind of thing. And I happened to have a project where Agile was super new at the time. I was assigned as a product owner.
Okay.
And right
Wait, before
before
you go into
that,
your story, did you know what a product owner was when you were assigned
no,
to do that?
no.
Okay.
This is the beauty of consulting. You cannot know what you're doing as in, at that time, I'm like a consultant level. I was very entry level. So you have a lot of top cover for people to sort of be like, Shayna is your new product owner. I don't even think there were certifications out back then. I'm gonna be real. There was not
Okay.
a path.
I never thought about that, like not having the certifications. I just
Oh
thought, you know
no,
what I
like the
mean?
certification game is new, is like new. I mean, like this is like 10, 12 years ago,
Right.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of these things were not a thing. But yeah, so they were like, Shane is your new product owner, right? And so I read my books and got myself together and we built this product. And this thing was coming to life like, bing, here's the new page and here's the next thing. And I remember I had just rolled off this project where I was on it for 9 months and I didn't see that code for the whole 9 months. I was like, where is the thing that we are? And I was up all night. I was a business analyst and I'm telling you, I was
Yeah.
up all night with the developer. Developer loved to work nights. So he would call me at 10 and be like, oh, so what this thing that you got in the requirements document, what do you mean by that? It was hell. So for me to be in a product owner role where it's like, oh, here you go. I was like, oh, whatever this is, this is me. I need to see it come alive every time. So
Right.
once that happened, it just so happened I was up for promotion and my manager was like, hey, I didn't get the promotion the first year. And he was like, yeah, you got to be known for something out here, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, okay, what? I got to be, he was like, oh, you're real, you're doing everything you should be doing, but you got to be known for something. I was like, okay, so what is other people in my department known for? And what, right. And when I tell you that every like executive at the firm was becoming an agile coach, 2-3 levels above me.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm about to become an agile coach, like, because it's a certification.
Right.
And I had the product ownership experience and I had to be known for something. I was trying to get promoted. I'm like, I'm gonna do what the people above the people is doing. You are not gonna deny me my growth. And that's what happened. I basically followed my bosses and what they were doing, and I got on the train. And what happened was, because I was the most junior person that had certification, they put me on every project. They had me up there writing all the proposals, putting together all the quotes. So I knew everything about the pricing, the contract, everything, because I'm the consultant on the ground. Like, I have to do all the grunt work. So I took that grunt work and was like, okay, well, let me just take this and my little Queensbridge collaboration and keep it moving. I mean, this day. Yeah.
That's such a good idea. Like, people don't talk about looking at what the people above you are like. What are y'all getting certified in? Where are y'all trying to go?
Sometimes I need to do that. People ask for mentorship, and that's the right thing to do. They ask to be coached, right?
Correct. Yes.
I'm a big believer in asking to be coached by people who advocate for you, but also observe the opportunities to coach yourself and be your own, kind of mentor, so to speak, like, or kind of be your own counsel.
Right. Because no matter what happens, even if you're at a job and they say you're supposed to take this route to get wherever you want to go, you're still the owner of that route. Like, you are the person with the feet who are going on this route. You have to make decisions for yourself too.
Yes. And my large observation would be, because, we do certification trainings so I largely see minorities certify in entry level skill sets and then stay in that space for longer. And then some of the skill sets that kind of track to like director and above, I do not see minorities in those spaces as much. And that has been a large observation. Like, we've been in business about 8 years.
Let's actually use an example, because I think this is a great diagram to draw for people. So let's use, I'm going to be selfish, Scrum Master route. Yeah. So if you're talking about from a certification standpoint, entry level would be just like regular, like the CSM, or
sometimes people will do like a like Agile fundamentals course, right? Because Scrum Master is not an entry. Most times it's not an entry level position, right?
Okay.
Sometimes it is.
Okay.
This is how I feel. I have seen people come out of college with a Scrum Master cert, go straight into a Scrum Master role and do perfectly fine.
Okay.
But I've also seen people kind of in their mid-career go into Scrum Master roles and do really well. The dollar range on those roles is pretty vast. Like, you can make under 6 figures, you can make over 6 figures in those roles. But what I also see is, like, for example, and a Scrum Master role is a process oriented role. So like, if you go to like people process tools, right? There are roles that are more like tools or product related, that could be like product management type of roles. And then there's roles that are process related, and Scrum Master I would put in that category. So what I will see people do is, like, in an Agile fundamentals, like learning about Scrum, or a Scrum Master role, or there's something called a release train engineer, which is like a Scrum of Scrums type of role, or even kind of a what they call this, like kind of even an Agile coaching role. I will see that there are some folks who will just go straight to the Agile coaching. They won't take the steps, right? Like that, they'll just go get certified in the highest category if they're in the company that's in the change active right now. I do not recommend that for career switching, right? But like, I will see a lot of minorities go straight into whatever is the most, like whatever their first line of defense is, they'll go straight into that. I see other people kind of network and talk about what's the best place to go, where's the best place to land, and then they decide where they want to go from there. And I think that that's the part that's interesting to me or fascinating to me, is that a lot of times like organizational change or decisions around job selection, if things are changing in an environment, there are a lot more casual conversations than I think most people realize. Like it's not as data driven, I think, as it should be from my perspective.
Interesting viewpoint there. I appreciate that. And also, I want to go on the other caveat of, because you've seen it and yourself, and maybe even have like had some kind of experience with that particular situation, what advice do you have for people who are listening to avoid getting caught in the, entry level trap?
I think that there are times when it is critical to show up and ask questions and be visible. So like, when an organization is going through some sort of organizational change, or if a team, if a team of teams are, reskilling or changing the way they do things, or improving their processes in some way, that's usually a time where it is time to lock in on like the town halls, to get off camera, to start to ask your manager more questions, to just be seen. Sometimes during those times, there are conversations being had amongst social groups that don't look like us about that change, right? And about what's happening. And just because they're a part of the conversation, right, you remember them in the room when the Post-it notes are going up about who lands where. But some of us are off the camera, we're disengaged, we're in cultures that are not always feeding us. And then we kind of get categorized in what's remaining. And that is just the real.
That is very real. And I appreciate you for sharing your tips and advice, because being seen is so important. And
being seen is showing up is so important.
Yes.
I mean,
it's part of the game. Like, no matter where you are, when you go into a job, unfortunately, it's a game in some sense of the word, which could be a whole podcast itself. But being seen is one of the starting pieces of like playing the game. And like your experience where your manager said you have to go, be known.
You have to be known for something.
Right. Be known for something in the workplace. If you take anything from this episode,
be known for something. Be known for something. And not be known in the workplace. Be known for something in the workplace. Okay. What am I coming to you for? I don't just know you.
Let's also clarify, be known for something good in the workplace.
Because you can be known for a lot.
Right. Don't be known for the negative. Be known for something good. For the negative.
Yeah. I mean, because when Atkco comes in to do the good work, we're looking at teams of teams, right? So that means like a lot of times there's 500 people that we're looking at, or 700 people that we're planning to skill or reskill or coach. That's a lot of people. And so in those conversations, I've been in room after room after room, and if you're not known for anything, then how will we know what we all 700 people can't be a part of the conversation? Somebody is always sponsoring, or your mentor or your sponsor or your advocate, who you may not even know who that is speaking up for you. And if you're known for something, they will speak up.
Yes, exactly. If you're known, they will speak up on your behalf every single time. And you know what, Shayna, I want to shift the conversation back to Agile and the work that you're doing, specifically process improvement. And so at Atco, you all are helping companies improve their processes. But when it comes to process improvement, your motto or your theory is that the how matters, especially when you're building tech solutions for today. So why does the how matter?
Right. I think it matters because anything you do that's kind of in a sequential order or step by step, right? That's considered a process, right? And there's a lot of things that happen when humans work together that may create extra steps in what you're trying to achieve. And so back in the day in like the lean manufacturing, which is why we bring lean concepts in a lot of what we do, there's the production line, like say for instance, Ford making a car, there's a line, each part of the car has to be put together. And there's something in lean concept around waste. And specifically like it's called 8 waste. And in IT, there's something that's very similar, right? So you can have overproduction of waste, meaning that you're building features that customers are never going to look at, use, or buy, right? There could be like movement waste, like there is context switching between projects. You might have too many projects that you're focused on one at one time. There's defects, right, or reworks in software development around planning, design, testing. So certain artifacts can become broken by change of priorities, creating waste. And when I talk about waste, I mean like these are things that contribute to more time, more expense, and less value or revenue or profit coming into a company, and more strain on the individual employee. So you got stressed employees, it costs more, it takes longer, and that's not good for anyone. So largely how process improvement plays a part is by actually identifying and understanding what the current state of what's happening. That's a lot of where we start. And then identifying where are areas that can be improved. And sometimes those areas are solved by, so-and-so needs less to do and needs to go on vacation, right? Sometimes it's solved by tools, right? Like you're seeing there, today organizations have on average 3.8 AI tools that they are using. It was 1.9 2 years ago, right? And so maybe it's tools that help with that process. Sometimes it's the steps themselves. Hey, we don't need to do step 1 through 8. We can do 1, 4, and 8 and get to the same place. Or maybe we're building tech debt, which we think we're solving the problem, but essentially we're creating something that is going to be a hard thing to unravel later. And so that's what we bring to the table, is this lens of not only, this production line or this process or the set of steps to get to the goal, but also all of the aspects that it takes to actually really make a change within an IT context, which largely includes an understanding of digital components, whether that be tooling, whether that be continuous integration and deployment, whether that be other aspects of technical agility that you can implement to make things, easier.
And Shayna, you brought up agile tools, and even just like with AI, just like 2 times more use of AI tools now as it was a couple years ago. But what are some of the common tools that you see in successful agile organizations?
Well, I think all organizations need a visual management system, which basically means like some way to view and track and measure work that's being from start to finish, as well as like the work kind of load that's coming up. And I think that helps a pull culture, meaning like more autonomy, where a worker can say, hey, it's Wednesday, I'm at 1 and I got some time, I'm gonna pull this thing off the top of the list because it's prioritized, I know that it's important, now I'm gonna go ahead and take care of that, right? Instead of a push culture, which is like, do this thing now. So that's one thing. I would say a second thing is in the deployment process, I think testing automation tools, as well as anything that can contribute to continuous delivery pipelines is like amazing. And I think the third thing is that I'm at the point now that like it's security first.
Oh, yes.
All day, every day, right? I
Mhm.
personally, as a consumer, protection and cybersecurity is top of mind for me because I want my data to be protected. But then also for an organization, that's sometimes we don't think about the impact of like compliance, risk, and governance, right? Like if we're not thinking about those things, they're not things that cost right now, but there are things that can cost a whole lot later.
Yes, yes. Oh, security is so important. I mean, how many times do we see some company got hacked?
I know. And that's like, whew, you think it cost nothing to clean up? Or the
Right.
reputation, the press release in and of itself. That's a whole, these are millions of dollars out the door automatically.
Right. Right. And we were talking about process improvement. So I want you to share. I know we talked about it a little bit from the individual contributor level, but then also obviously from Atkco's perspective, the organizational level. I want to know what are three tips or pieces of advice that you have for improving the processes within an organization?
Yeah, so I would say that number one is I think like so McKinsey released this study recently of like, what is the state of organizations
Mhm.
essentially. And essentially organizations want to increase speed and efficiency, right? They need to strengthen resiliency, and kind of really think about how their people are happy, right? Whether it be retention, attracting people, hybrid work environments, what's the talent, DEI. So there's a number of things that are top of mind for organizations. So I think three process improvement tips that I have is for one, number one is understand the current process, right, that your organization is following for what you are doing. So if you're on a specific, say it's one team, you're on a specific feature or product team and you guys focus on a particular thing, say for instance it's access, fingerprint access or whatever. What are the steps that it takes to get new features out to production? That I think is number one. And from understanding that, literally I think just writing it down and understanding end to end, you will be able to identify something small or large, even micro tiny, that you can do differently. So I think that exercise is useful like once a quarter or so. I would also say just thinking ahead in the future, like, okay, what is the roadmap? I see people either over index or under index. Like I see people either be like, this is our 3-year strategic plan, right? Which is great. I think you need that vision, but I think 3 quarters is good. It's not a whole year, but it's like, okay, this is the next few quarters of what we're doing. But I also see people under index. They're like, this is what we doing next month. It's like, I think you need some kind of foresight or forward thinking. So I do believe
Right.
that balance in like having a roadmap. And then I also think my third thing, and I'm gonna do a bonus thing, Dina, just for the individual human being that's at work every day.
Okay.
But my third thing is that just like a continuous learning, right? Like anybody who works in tech for more than 5 years, you feel like you have had 4 or 5 jobs. Like you, even if you're in the same position at the same company, it's changing all the time. So though that brings about a level of fatigue, and self-care is important, I think it's so important to kind of just understand largely where things are going in the world and like where you fit into that. I think a healthy practice for individuals is to always interview. And I will let y'all learn on a
Mm.
secret. I interview once every couple of years at companies just to understand like where are we? Where's this company going? What are the trends? Where am I? Because as a founder, I still have a career, right? Like,
Right.
and I was a young founder, so I could still have a career in lifetimes from now. I just think you should always interview. just know where you are. And I think interviewing helps you understand where companies are going, because usually the roles they're hiring for are more forward thinking to where they're trying to be. So yeah, and then I would say like really get your email etiquette together. I know that seems like not a process improvement thing, but like you could do like a four, like it's just like a simple 4 sections. Like here is what we talked about. Here's what I'm doing to address that.
Right.
These are the actions that we're taking, and thank you so much. Here's the human aspect, cordial part, like love, great soccer game, congratulations on a swim meet, like whatever that is. Make sure you have a human touch to it as well. But communication etiquette, whether it be email or Teams or Slack or whatever, I think is a large part of process improvement, because I think we get lost in translation a lot.
Exactly. And I think, you know what, it's even just like having that personal piece. Like we've gotten so into ourselves and so into like this work thing. And it's like, people are still people. You can
Oh
ask how someone.
no, I'm a founder. I'm guilty. Okay.
But I feel like from the email etiquette standpoint, people just be like, rah, give me this, and then be like, whoa, wait, happy Friday. Like glad you're here or something. I don't know.
No,
But
I'm that person that's like reply all back. Good morning. My bad, y'all. Good morning.
listen, it does take time though to like make that adjustment too. Cause
Oh no, for sure.
I feel like I ebb and flow. I have those periods. I totally understand. But Shayna, you mentioned you're a lifelong learner. So I have to know, what do you use, or what tools, what are you reading, etc. What are you doing to keep your skills up? What are you doing to make sure that you have the up-to-date knowledge on things?
I love a good podcast. Love a good podcast. Dina, listen to Black Tech Unplugged. Okay.
Thank you.
And what I learned about cybersecurity, I said, brother, you know what I'm saying? I might have to call you. No. Okay, seriously, a good podcast. But the second thing for sure is I would go into it. I just did a communication coaching training 2 weeks ago, got a certification in it. Like I said, I'm the person replying all saying good morning, so that means I got a communication thing I need to work on personally, right? I think the pressures of being a founder, I'm a very human oriented person, but when it comes down to the get down, I'm like, oh, well, I'm responsible for everything going on. So I could be like, rah, right? But like, that's not going to get us anywhere. The team, we did not achieve anything alone. So I could roar all I want to. I'll be by myself, and that's not gonna help anybody. So yeah, let me work on these communication skills. And I think that's my thing. It's like being self-aware enough to know what's the gap, asking people like, what can if I'm not like 1 out of 10, how am I leading you? 1 out of 10, how are we collaborating? If it's a 7, what do we need to get to 10?
Right.
And doing something about it.
Right, taking the results of your retro and actually putting it to work, right?
Okay, because the retros are hard to look at, but you got to do something.
Yes, you have to do something.
Yeah.
And also, because I want to kind of end the podcast on some more of your tips and advice, because you have a plethora of all of that. For people who are trying to get into roles, either they're new, haven't been in the industry, so, basically like entry level, or people who are currently in tech, but they want to get into more of those agile type of roles within an organization. What advice do you have for them to transition into agile roles?
I think that the first advice is like, you have to find like a like and a like, meaning in the sense of if you work in a particular industry, trying to think of an industry like healthcare comes to mind, and you are trying to go into an agile role, you may have the industry experience paired with the certification and maybe some volunteer work, then maybe like that career switching should be in the same industry, if that makes any sense. So I think like find something that is like when you're making that transition. I think the other thing is there's a little bit of a map of like, if you have background in project management, if you are a Six Sigma person, or if you have experience like with working with process, you used to have a role in risk or compliance, like those things may make you more process oriented. So then you can kind of draw the parallels to a scrum master role. Whereas if you worked in a system in and out, you may have wrote the user manual for it. You might have helped other people figure it out. That's more of product thinking. And so you might want to go to product oriented roles. But I think largely in the tech industry, what's amazing about it is there's like the hard skilled roles, like, development type of roles, but there's so many tangential ways to also support an IT ecosystem that is an exercise, is largely a reflection exercise on how to connect the dots.
Nice. Yeah, I agree with your tips. I mean, there's so many different ways. I think too, another thing is making sure you understand what roles are in the agile environment that you're trying to get into. Because one, agile environments are different at every organization. But
Yes.
two, a lot of times we're applying for roles and we don't really know what they are, and that's not a good look. So just understand what those roles are, what the responsibilities are before applying.
Yeah, a job description does tell a lot about a role. So I think really understanding job descriptions and comparing that up against other job descriptions, I think is helpful for understanding how to really address a role and what to address in an interview for a role.
Yes.
It also helps you understand pay scales. But I would always, like, if I'm applying for one role or someone is applying for one role, look at the other roles in the market.
Yes, yes. And Shayna, I want to ask two questions about the future. First one is just general tech. So obviously we know AI is everywhere. Like you mentioned, there's like millions of tools out there and everybody's trying to use all of them. But what's
Yeah.
going to happen to Agile when it comes to everything that's happening with machine learning in the AI world? What's going to happen to the Agile environments? And then also like from a process improvement standpoint?
I think Agile is going to largely be disrupted in the same way that Waterfall was disrupted. I think we're going to go into almost like there's no name for this, but like a kind of continuous incremental kind of agile ways of working, like an agile 2.0 type of environment. And I think that AI tools and capabilities are going to enable and unlock workforces to focus on higher orders of problem solving. So, meaning that a lot of like mundane tasks can likely be and this is future, right? But like a lot of basic tasks can largely probably be addressed by a tool at some point in the future. And all, knowledge workers that are in tech will be the ones that are like problem solving is going to become like the forefront of how we show up in the workplace. So I think what that means largely for agile practitioners like me, and I know largely like yourself, is that we focus on ways of working and improvement, like continuous improvement, as like the forefront of what we do. So it's not as basic as like, okay, we're going to do a sprint and, we're going to do these ceremonies. It's more like, okay, what is the problem that we're trying to solve? Like, how do we root cause that? What do we use to address that? And then how do we continuously improve, measure it, right? Because I think data has unlocked a way where you can always measure what you're doing, measure it, and then let that data determine where you go next. So I hope that answers your question. I don't have, I'm not going to say, oh, it's going to be a new tool and it's like a new agile coach, Alexa, how do you look?
So you mean they're not going to replace us with AI?
No, I think that we're going to be called to solve more complex problems. So always be learning and always be relevant.
Yes. And my favorite question that I'm going to end with is what's the future for Atkco and you?
Yes. I mean, we are at the forefront of ways of working, right? So I think that for us, process improvement, ways of working is just how we do business. Largely. And I will say that for Atkco, I think the biggest thing that's coming up for us that we have kind of coming out, hot is that we haven't started to partner with some very, very cool tooling companies where we'll be able to apply like process improvement and ways of working and some interesting capabilities, like for instance, identity and access management, some pieces around security, so that not only we'll be able to like actually kind of coach and train on particular skill sets and coach for improvement, but then we'll also be able to enable the tool sets that kind of allow for long-term, just sustained improvement. So we're very excited about that. I think one of those partnerships is has just hit like a couple days ago, and it's with Agility Health. We're in contract with a couple other partners. We actually have some big names who have signed on with us as well. So just making sure that we go beyond kind of solving the pain point to a sustained journey with our customers.
Nice. Well, I'm excited to see what happens in the future. Always rooting for you. So, very excited to see these partnerships come to life, and then hopefully even send some of my listeners and their companies over to you after listening
Oh,
to
absolutely. Yeah, no, for sure. So we're doing these things called diagnostic workshops all throughout the rest of this year. So it's just like in celebration of Inc. 5000. So we have, I bet, 10 slots. I don't know how many we have left, but 10 slots through the end of 2023 where we're doing 90-minute diagnostic kind of workshops with companies. So if there's anyone who has an idea or they're in a space and you like, I used to have this amazing environment and there's some things going on we need to talk about, then yeah, come over our way.
Yes, yes. And if people are interested, how can they connect with you, get one of those diagnostic sessions, or just anything in between?
Yes, so you can connect with me on LinkedIn at Shayna Atkins. That is the quickest and best way to get in touch with me and connect with me and follow. And then from a like getting in touch with us about the diagnostics assessment, you can go to Atkco, which is atk.co. So our actual website is Atkco, like atk.co/contact us. And then also for your listeners who are looking to career switch or who are very talented and excellent in what they do, you can always go to atk.co/careers. Okay. Because we have fun over here.
I love it. And Shayna, we are at the part of the podcast where I give the final stage to you to reveal any final words of advice, tips, anything to the people listening to the episode. So the floor is officially yours.
Oh, Tina.
Everybody always says that. And then y'all have these long paragraphs that where you had in your soul that you didn't say. So I know you got something for me.
Okay. Pause. Cut this part out.
I will pause. I will cut it out. I will cut it out.
Cut it out. Cut it out. No, I would say that my word of advice, I would say like follow the like where your soul brings you. I don't know. It's very fluffy. Yeah, always be learning. I think it's my biggest word of advice. But then also, like, this is so random, Dina, and it's probably only one person I'll be speaking to when I say this, but I'm now a military spouse. And I largely get to be around really amazing women who are holding their partners down. And I think that if you have a military spouse apply for a role for you, she is going to kill it, or he, right? And I would largely say if you are a military spouse or you are looking for employment, there are a lot of amazing remote first positions in tech. And I think that that is a group that from a career switching perspective, like the skills and the grit that I see within that community is amazing. And so that's probably it. It's just I'm gonna speak to one little small community out there and be like, listen, honey, go get your cert. And go on Military One Source and get your scholarship with your cert. Then go get it.
Listen, it might hit more people than you think. So I do appreciate that, and I appreciate you sharing, and I appreciate all the tips and advice that you gave my listeners today. So thank you so much, Shayna, for coming on.
All right, thank you so much, Dina. Thank you for inviting me.